Morning light touched the small windows of Jamal Carter's apartment and slid across the neat row of shoes by the door. Jamal liked order. He made his bed with tight corners every day, the way he had been trained. He brewed coffee, stood by the sink, and watched steam rise like a quiet flag. Outside, the city was waking up: delivery vans, a barking dog, a bicycle bell. Inside, everything was calm. Jamal had built his life around calm. He was a veteran and a former tomb guard, one of the soldiers who stand watch at the tomb of the unknown soldier. There, he had learned that silence could be strong. There, he had learned that every tiny action mattered. He kept his uniform clean and pressed even though he did not wear it often. He kept his medal in a small velvet box in the top drawer of a plain wooden dresser. He did not take the box out unless the day had a special meaning. Today had a special meaning, but not for him. A neighbor from 2 floors down, Mrs. Avery, had knocked on his door 3 days earlier. She was always kind, always ready with extra bread for the kids on the block, always smiling when she carried groceries home. "My nephew has a hearing this week," she had said, wringing her hands. "He made a mistake with his car registration. He's a good boy, works at the community center. Would you speak for his character? Just a few words about how you know him. The judge might listen." Jamal had listened carefully, then nodded once, slow and sure. "Of course," he said. "I'll be there." He did not promise more than he could do. He could not make a court decide one way or another. But he could tell the truth. He had seen the nephew coaching little boys in the park, fixing a bent soccer goal, handing out water bottles during summer camp. The young man said hello to neighbors, carried groceries, and shoveled snow in winter without charging anyone. These were simple things, but simple things told a story. On the morning of the hearing, Jamal opened the velvet box and stood still for a moment. The medal rested there, quiet as always, a circle and a star that caught the light. He remembered the day he received it. He did not remember speeches or crowds. What he remembered was the weight in his hand and the names of people he wished were standing beside him. He wore the medal only at official events or when a moment called for the truth of who he was and what he had promised his teammates long ago, to honor them by living with dignity. He set the box on the dresser and pulled on his dress uniform with careful steps. First the shirt, smooth and white. Then the jacket, deep and formal. He checked each button and brushed a speck from his sleeve. He placed the medal with both hands, the way he had been taught: straight, level, respectful. He did not rush. He did not look in the mirror to admire himself. He looked to make sure the medal sat exactly where it should, telling the silent story it always told. The elevator was slow that morning, so he took the stairs. On the second floor landing he met a boy in a soccer jersey. The boy's eyes widened at the uniform and the medal. "Good morning, sir," the boy said, standing a little taller. "Good morning," Jamal replied, and the corners of his mouth turned up. Respect was not loud. It was a small lift in the spine, a steady gaze, a voice that did not shake. The walk to the courthouse took 15 minutes. Jamal liked to walk. He noticed the woman watering plants in a window box, the bus driver who waited for a late runner, the crossing guard who held up a hand while 2 tiny children trotted across the lines. He heard a faint siren far off and a street vendor setting out warm pretzels. Life moved in many directions at once, but it also moved together, like a parade that had learned the same step. He reached the courthouse steps and paused to straighten his jacket. The building was old stone, heavy and serious, with wide doors and shiny handles. People went in and out with a mix of nerves and boredom, the ordinary rhythm of any courthouse. Security lines moved along. A man in a gray suit folded his newspaper. A woman in a blue dress checked her watch. At the screening station, Jamal placed his phone and keys in a tray. The security officer looked up, then looked down at his uniform and his medal. The officer's face softened. "Good morning, sir," he said, a little differently than he said it to the last person. "Good morning," Jamal answered. "Thank you for your service," the officer added, not loud, just steady. Jamal nodded. "Thank you," he replied, and stepped through the metal detector. It beeped once and then went silent. He gathered his things and moved on, leaving behind only the soft sound of the tray sliding back across the counter. The hallway outside courtroom 3A smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old paper. Benches lined the walls. A bulletin board held flyers about mediation, translation, and how to find a lawyer if you could not pay. A coffee machine hummed in a corner. A young intern in a neat blazer stood by the door with a stack of case lists, looking both busy and eager. "Mr. Carter," a voice called. It was Mrs. Avery, moving toward him with her nephew. She looked relieved. The nephew shook Jamal's hand firmly. His palms were warm and slightly damp. "Thank you for coming, sir," he said. Jamal gave a small nod. "I'm here to tell the truth," he said. "That's all." They waited on a bench together. The nephew explained that he had missed a renewal notice, then fixed it, then missed a letter about a fee. It was a tangle. He had brought proof of payment and letters from the community center. He spoke clearly, like a person who had practiced in front of a mirror. Jamal did not promise anything. He only listened, and when the young man finished, Jamal said, "You've done what you can. We'll go in and we'll be respectful." Across the hall, a clerk rolled a mail cart. The intern with the case list sneaked glances at Jamal's medal and finally said, "Sir, is that?" Jamal answered with a quiet yes. The intern's eyes widened, then he swallowed and stood straighter, almost like the boy in the soccer jersey. Jamal had seen that look before. It did not make him proud of himself. It made him careful with his words. People watched how a person carried honor. He wanted to carry it without making noise. The door opened and a bailiff called a name. A couple stood up and went inside. The door closed again with a soft thud. The hallway returned to low whispers and the rustle of paper. 10 minutes later, the bailiff called the nephew's name. They rose. Jamal placed a hand on the young man's shoulder for a brief moment. It was not for show. It was a small sign: "You are not walking into this room alone." Inside, courtroom 3A was cooler than the hall. The air hummed with quiet, nervous energy. A state flag stood in the corner. The judge sat high behind a long wooden desk. He was a tall man with steel gray hair and a lined face. His nameplate read Judge Harold Kinsey. A clock ticked above the door. The sound did not fill the room, but once you noticed it, it was there. People shifted on benches. A woman dabbed her eyes with a tissue. A man in a uniform from the Transit Authority sat with a folder on his lap. Jamal and the nephew found seats in the second row. Jamal sat straight but relaxed, his hands folded lightly. There were rules on the wall: no phones, no hats, no gum, proper dress. There was also a laminated sheet near the door that listed courtroom expectations. At the bottom it said, "All must show respect for the law and each other." Jamal noticed that line and felt in agreement with it. Respect was a two-way street, like the street outside with its painted crosswalks and careful drivers. Cases moved quickly at first: fines, extensions, a simple dispute between neighbors that ended with a handshake. Judge Kinsey spoke in short, firm sentences. He watched the clock. He disliked wasted time. He asked direct questions and expected direct answers. Jamal appreciated clear talk. He did not judge the judge. He simply watched and listened, as he had been trained to do at the tomb, where watching and listening were part of the work. Then the clerk called the nephew's case number. The three of them stood and moved to the front. Jamal stayed one step behind and to the side, as a guest should. The nephew presented his papers to the clerk. The judge glanced down at the file, then up. His eyes stopped at Jamal's chest. They narrowed. "What is that?" Judge Kinsey asked, pointing with a small motion. "Your Honor," Jamal said evenly, "this is my Medal of Honor. I am here as a character witness." The room cooled a degree. Someone drew in a breath. The bailiff's expression shifted, surprised and concerned at the same time. "No pins or decorations in my courtroom," the judge said. "Remove it." Jamal did not move. He was careful with silence. Silence was not refusal, it was thought. He let one calm breath come and go. Then he spoke. "With respect, Your Honor, this is not a decorative pin. It is a military award, properly worn on a service uniform." The judge's face stayed still. "We will have neutrality in this room," he said. "The presence of that item may influence the jury or distract from the matter before the court. You will remove it?" Jamal kept his voice low and steady. "Your Honor, I am not here to influence anyone. I will speak only to the young man's good character. If you prefer, I can wait outside until I am called." Whispers stirred in the rows behind them. A veteran in the back, his cap tucked respectfully under his arm, looked at the floor. The clerk shifted a stack of files. The intern near the door placed a hand over a small notebook, as if to keep it from sliding away. Judge Kinsey tapped a finger on the bench. The sound was soft but sharp, like a pencil point on wood. "This is not a request," he said. "It is an order. Remove it." Jamal stood a little straighter, not defiant, simply anchored. He thought of the long, silent walk he had made so many times on the black mat before the tomb. He thought of the Sentinel's creed and the promise to carry himself with dignity in every public place. He had never argued for attention. He had never used his service to gain favor. He wore the medal because it was part of the truth, like his name, like the oath he had taken many years ago. He did not raise his voice. He did not let it shake. "With respect, Your Honor," he said, "I cannot." A rustle went through the room like wind through tall grass. The bailiff took a step forward, then stopped, unsure. The nephew looked from the judge to Jamal and back again, his mouth open, his papers trembling just a little. Mrs. Avery clutched her handbag and whispered a prayer that was more breath than words. The clock above the door ticked once, then twice. The judge leaned back in his chair, eyes steady on Jamal. The quiet grew heavier, as if the room itself were holding its breath. No one moved. Even the coffee cup on the clerk's desk seemed to wait. In that suspended moment, before the next word was spoken, the difference between rules and respect became a living question. It stood in the space between a man's honor and another man's authority. It stood on the line where a small courtroom could teach a big lesson or miss it. And as everyone in 3A felt that line under their feet, the day took a turn that none of them would forget. The silence in courtroom 3A felt like a held breath. The judge's words hung in the air, neat and sharp, like a sign posted on a door. Jamal stood still. He did not make a show of strength. He did not lower his eyes, either. He simply stood the way he had been trained, balanced, calm, aware of everyone around him. The bailiff, a steady man with kind eyes named Mr. Price, took one step forward. His shoes made a soft sound on the floor. He looked from the judge to Jamal, then back to the judge, waiting for a clear instruction. The room sensed the moment turning. A woman in the third row stopped fanning herself. The transit worker folded his hands. The clock over the door ticked a single second that seemed longer than most minutes. "Bailiff," Judge Kinsey said in a steady voice, "ensure the courtroom rules are followed." Mr. Price nodded once. He did not reach for Jamal. He had seen proud people made small by loud hands, and he did not want to add to that. He moved close, not crowding, almost like a friend giving quiet advice. "Sir," he said softly, "the judge is firm about his rules. Is there something we can do? Maybe you could step into the hall while we sort it out." Jamal's answer came calm and clear. "I will not disrupt this room," he said. "If the court prefers, I will wait outside until I am called. But I cannot remove this medal." Mr. Price breathed out, relieved that the words were gentle. He looked back at the bench. The judge's face did not change. From the last row, a low voice said, "Let him wear it." Another voice whispered, "It's a military award." Mr. Price raised a hand for quiet, not with anger, only with firmness. The room obeyed. Even whispers can break order if they grow too many. At the clerk's desk, Elena Ruiz adjusted her glasses and pulled a binder closer. She had worked in this courthouse for 8 years. She knew where things were that other people forgot. She flipped through tabs labeled dress code, conduct, and security guidance. Her finger ran down a page. She shook her head. Then she pulled a slim booklet from a drawer, the state's judicial ethics guidance. Her thumb found a folded corner. She turned to a passage she remembered reading when she first started: respect for uniforms properly worn, sensitivity to service, caution about creating rules that send the wrong message to the public. She stood and leaned toward the judge's bench. Her voice was quiet, professional. "Your Honor," she said, "may I approach?" The judge gave a small nod. Elena brought the book and placed a finger near the paragraph. "There's language here that might help," she said. "It isn't a direct order, but it offers guidance about my courtroom," he said, not unkindly, but with a wall in his tone. "My rules." Elena felt her cheeks warm. She did not push. She knew that pushing at the wrong moment could make a thing worse. She set the book down with the page open, just in case. Near the door, the young intern, the one with the list of cases, shifted on his feet. His name was Theo. He had been told 100 times not to use his phone inside the courtroom. He had followed that rule. But earlier, in the hallway, he had filmed a 5-second clip with no sound: the doors to 3A, the sign about respect, then Jamal walking in with Mrs. Avery and the nephew, the medal catching the hallway light. He had thought the clip was just for himself, a little reminder that he worked somewhere important. Now his heart tapped hard. He left the courtroom and stood just outside the door, where phones were allowed. He opened the clip again. He didn't add words. He only typed, "Something serious is happening. Be kind." Then he sent it to his friend in the media office across the street, who liked to post notes about civic life: trash pickup changes, park openings, court reminders. He did not think it would go far. He only hoped it would be seen by people who understood respect. Back inside, the judge spoke again. "Mr. Carter," he said, "you are a guest in this room. The rule is simple. Remove the item or be held in contempt." Mrs. Avery's hands tightened over her handbag. The nephew swallowed. Jamal took one slow breath. He did not think about winning. He thought about telling the truth in the smallest actions. He thought of the long black mat at the tomb and the way every step had to be exact, not for the camera or the crowd, but for the promise. "With respect, Your Honor," he said, "I cannot." There was no challenge in his voice. There was no tremble, either. It was like a line drawn with a pencil and a ruler, straight, neat, final. The judge looked at him for a long second. Then he turned to the clerk. "We will recess for 10 minutes, he said. "Court will return at 11:25. The gavel tapped once. The hum of movement returned: people standing, benches creaking, the light scrape of shoes. Mr. Price approached Jamal again. "Sir," he said, "would you be willing to step into the hallway during the recess?" "I will," Jamal said. He placed a gentle hand on the nephew's shoulder. "I'll be right outside. Keep your papers in order. Breathe." In the hall, the air felt warmer. Theo, the intern, looked up quickly, then down again, shy. A few people from the courtroom followed out and gathered in clusters. Voices were low but busy. Is it really that metal? Someone asked. Yes, another person said, it is. Why would anyone ask him to remove it? Maybe the judge is thinking about fairness, someone else offered. Juries can be moved by symbols. Maybe fairness is also knowing what a symbol stands for. Jamal stood near the wall, hands folded, eyes soft. He did not join the debate. He had learned long ago that when feelings are hot, silence can cool the room. Mrs. Avery stood beside him. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for trouble. This is not your doing, Jamal said gently. We'll walk through it. Elena came out too, holding the small ethics book at her side. She paused near Jamal. Sir, she said, I can't give advice. But I found a section that may help. I will try again to show it to the judge. Thank you, Jamal said. He meant it. He respected people who did their work with care. Across the hall, a young veteran in a simple jacket stood with his cap tucked under his arm. He walked over slowly. Sir, he said, voice low, I served after you. I just wanted to say, thank you. Jamal nodded. Thank you, he replied, and he meant that too. Service is a bridge between strangers. The 10 minutes stretched to 12. The door opened. All rise, Mr. Price called. People filed back in. Jamal returned to his place near the nephew, one step behind and to the side. The judge took his seat. The gavel sounded again. Court is in session. Elena moved quickly but quietly, placing the open book where the judge could see it without making a scene. He glanced down, then away. His jaw worked once. Mr. Carter, he said, the rule stands. This courtroom will not permit displays that may distract or sway. Jamal's reply was the same as before, measured, careful. With respect, Your Honor, this is not a display. It is part of my uniform and my life. If the court prefers, I can wait outside until I am called. The judge's eyes settled on him. No, he said. You will follow the rule. His voice did not rise, but it hardened. This is your final warning. Mr. Price's shoulders tensed. Elena pressed her lips together. Mrs. Avery's eyes shone. I cannot, Jamal said. The judge leaned toward the microphone. Mr. Carter, you are in contempt of court. The words were precise. Bailiff, detain him until I determine the appropriate sanction. The room reacted with small sounds rather than big ones. A sigh here, a soft no there, a paper crinkling in hands that suddenly felt too tight. Mr. Price moved forward. He did not grab. He stood beside Jamal, close enough to guide but not to shame. Sir, he said, I have to ask you to step this way. Jamal nodded once. To Mrs. Avery and the nephew, he said, keep your focus. Speak the truth. Do not let this become about me. Then to Mr. Price he added, I will walk with you. They moved toward the side door. As they passed the clerk's desk, Elena whispered, I'm sorry. Jamal gave her a small nod that meant, you are doing your job. Keep doing it well. In the short corridor behind the courtroom, the noise faded. The walls were painted a calm gray. Mr. Price stopped by a bench. He did not handcuff Jamal right away. Sir, he said, I am required to secure you. I will be respectful. I know, Jamal said. Mr. Price took a breath, then carefully, professionally, he placed the cuffs. Jamal's posture did not change. If anything, he stood taller. The cuffs clicked softly, not like in the movies. They were a tool, not a shout. Mr. Price checked the fit, making sure they were not too tight. Jamal met his eyes. Thank you, he said. It was an odd phrase for the situation, but it was sincere. Respect goes both ways or it does not go at all. Back in the courtroom, the nephew stood very still. His paper shook in his hand. The judge continued with the docket. Cases went on because that is what courts do. But a different kind of clock began to tick now, one that measured how fast a story moves through a city. In the hallway, Theo's short clip had already reached the media office across the street. A friend there, who posted community notices, watched it and wrote a simple line: "Question today, do rules and respect ever collide?" A veteran was asked to remove a medal in courtroom 3A. The friend did not use names. The post was not an attack. It was an open palm: look, think, be kind. People looked. People shared. A teacher sent it to a group for civic studies. A veterans center saw it and asked, "Where is this?" A local radio producer sent a message to the courthouse desk. Not everyone agreed on what should happen. But most agreed on one thing: the tone should be respectful on all sides. Down the corridor, Mr. Price led Jamal to a small holding area used for short detentions. The room was bright and clean, with a chair and a table. He offered Jamal water. "Thank you," Jamal said again. He sat, hands in front of him, the metal bright against the dark cloth of his uniform. He looked at the far wall, not as if he were somewhere else, but as if he were present in the moment and measuring it steadily. "Sir," Mr. Price said, voice low, "I don't know how this will play out. But I want you to know I respect you. I respect the court, too. My job is to hold both truths at once." "That is a good job," Jamal said. "Hard, but good." Elena, after finishing a stack of filings, stepped into the corridor and spoke to Mr. Price near the door. Her voice was not loud, but it carried a gentle force. "I'm going to bring the supervising judge the policy language," she said. "This is bigger than a dress code. We need clarity so we do not harm the public's trust." Mr. Price nodded. "Thank you," he said. Back in 3A, the nephew's case was rescheduled for later in the day. The judge gave a short reason. The court moved on. But the room felt different now, like a house after a storm passes and the air is too still. People glanced at the clerk's desk, then at the empty space where Jamal had stood. In the lobby a few floors down, a small group had gathered by the security station. The officer who had greeted Jamal earlier spoke to them in calm tones. "Please be respectful," he said. "The court is handling it." A woman with a stroller nodded. "We will," she said. She had not come to protest. She had come to see how a community behaves when a hard question is asked in public. The 10-minute recess had turned into a much larger story, even though no one had planned it. That is how some days work. You wake up, make your bed, take your walk, and find that something you carry quietly becomes a mirror for everyone else. Some look and see rules. Some look and see honor. The best days are the ones when people look and see both and look for a way to hold them together. In the small holding room, Jamal sat with his hands still and his heart steady. He did not know what would happen next. He knew only this: he had done his part to be truthful, to be gentle, and to stand without making noise. The rest would be decided by other people doing their jobs. He hoped they would do those jobs with the same care he had tried to bring to his. He heard footsteps outside, then the quiet murmur of voices: Elena's, Mr. Price's, and another voice he did not know yet. He did not lean forward to listen. He sat as if on the black mat again, counting not steps but seconds, reminding himself that patience is a kind of strength. Behind his calm, a simple thought moved like a small, steady light: dignity is not taken or given, it is carried. And like any good weight, it teaches the one who carries it how to stand. The hallway outside the holding room was quiet, but it was a purposeful quiet, like the pause before a careful answer. Mr. Price stood by the door and spoke in a low voice to Elena and a woman in a dark suit who had just arrived from upstairs. The woman's steps were light. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp, as if she measured things the way a carpenter measures wood before a cut. "I'm Judge Patel," she said to Mr. Price. "Supervising judge for this floor. Miss Ruiz called me." "Thank you for coming, Your Honor," Elena said. She held the small ethics booklet like a note from a teacher. "There's guidance we should consider. I believe we may have made a mistake." Judge Patel nodded once. "Let's look at everything." She opened the booklet to the marked page. Her eyes moved down the lines. She did not rush. Respect for lawful uniforms, caution against rules that could be seen as disrespect toward military service, maintain dignity for all parties. She tapped the page softly. "All right." Through the door's small window, Jamal could see only a slice of the corridor, the edge of Elena's jacket, the clean line of Mr. Price's sleeve, the side of a gray suit. He did not strain to see more. He sat with his hands still. The metal lay steady on his chest. He watched the white wall in front of him the way he once watched the white gloves in his hands at the tomb, carefully, without noise. Judge Patel stood straight. "Mr. Price," she said, "please let Mr. Carter know I would like to speak with him briefly." "Yes, Your Honor," Mr. Price said. He opened the door. "Sir," he said to Jamal. "The supervising judge would like a word." Jamal stood. The cuffs clicked softly as he adjusted his posture. Mr. Price stepped in and removed them with the same care he had used to place them. "Thank you," Jamal said. He followed Mr. Price into the corridor. "Mr. Carter," Judge Patel said, "I'm Judge Patel. I want to make sure you are treated with respect while we review what happened. Would you like water? A chair?" "I'm fine, Your Honor," Jamal said. His tone was steady. "Thank you for speaking with me. I read the guidance," she said, holding the booklet. "There may be a misunderstanding about what our rules intend. A courtroom must be neutral, yes. But neutrality is not the same as erasing the truth of who a person is. I want you to know I am looking at this with care." "That means a lot," Jamal said. "I came to tell the truth for a young man. I did not come to cause trouble." "I understand," she said. "Please wait here with the bailiff. I'll return shortly." She took the book and walked toward the back stairs that led to chambers. Elena and Mr. Price exchanged a quick glance, part relief, part hope. Elena whispered, "Thank you for your patience," and went to prepare a short memo for the supervising judge, listing what had happened in order, with exact words and times. She knew that clear notes help calm hot rooms. Upstairs, Judge Patel called the court administrator and the chief judge. She did not raise her voice. She read lines from the guidance. She explained what had been said in 3A. She asked for permission to intervene to protect the court's dignity. The answer was simple: do what is right. Back on the third floor, courtroom doors kept opening and closing. Cases continued. But a soft current ran under everything now, like a river under a thin sheet of ice. People felt it even if they did not talk about it. In the lobby, the security officer reminded newcomers to be calm. "We're a community," he said. "Let's act like one." His words were plain and good. Theo, the intern, stood by a wall near the elevators. He rubbed the edge of his case list with his thumb. His short hallway clip had traveled farther than he ever expected. A friend had messaged, "We're sharing this carefully. No names, no drama." He felt a mix of worry and hope. He did not want anyone hurt. He wanted the courthouse he loved to look like the good place he believed it could be. Judge Patel returned in less than 20 minutes. She moved with quiet purpose back to the corridor by the holding room. "Mr. Price," she said, "please bring Mr. Carter to courtroom 3B. We will handle this on the record." "Yes, Your Honor." They walked to 3B, a room with the same flags and the same wood, but cooler air, as if the vents ran a little stronger. The benches were mostly empty. Elena slipped in and sat near the front with her notebook. Theo stood in the doorway, holding the jam like a swimmer holds the side of the pool, not wanting to drift, not wanting to get in the way. "All rise," called a clerk. People stood. Judge Patel took her seat and nodded for everyone to sit. "Good morning," she said into the microphone. "This is an emergency session to review a matter concerning courtroom decorum and the rights of a witness. Mr. Carter, thank you for appearing." Jamal stood and gave a small nod. "Yes, Your Honor. I have reviewed our policies," she said. "I have also reviewed guidance from the state. It is the position of this court that a service member, current or former, who appears in a lawful uniform may wear earned decorations according to regulations. Such decorations are not displays for persuasion but parts of the uniform that reflect service." She looked up at Jamal. "It is also the position of this court that dignity belongs to every person who comes through our doors. We are here to apply the law with care and respect. That must never be in doubt." Elena let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Mr. Price's shoulders softened. Theo felt his eyes sting and quickly blinked them clear. "Therefore," Judge Patel continued, "the contempt order issued in courtroom 3A is vacated. Mr. Carter is released from any restraint. A written clarification of our decorum policy will be posted today. We will ensure that future visitors understand both our commitment to fairness and our respect for service." She turned slightly, as if speaking to the whole building, not just the people in the room. "We are not perfect. But we can correct ourselves. That is part of why the public trusts courts." She faced Jamal again. "Mr. Carter, on behalf of this courthouse, I apologize for what you experienced." Jamal's voice was calm. "Thank you, Your Honor. I accept your words. I came here for a neighbor. I would like to fulfill that duty." "You will," she said. "Miss Ruiz, please ensure the matter in 3A is rescheduled to this courtroom this afternoon." "I will hear it." "Yes, Your Honor," Elena said, already writing. Judge Patel paused. "One more thing. I will notify the Judicial Conduct Commission of the incident. They will review the facts. This is not about punishment. It is about clarity and trust." She nodded to Jamal. "You are free to go for now. If you prefer, you may wait in the witness room until we reconvene." "I'll wait," Jamal said. He looked at Mr. Price. "Thank you for your respect." "Always," Mr. Price said. As they stepped into the hallway, the simple movement of people felt different, lighter, as if someone had opened a window. News travels fast when it carries hope. A woman in the lobby smiled at Mr. Price as he passed. Theo pressed his back gently to the wall and breathed out, slow. In the witness room, Jamal sat in a plain chair beside a small table with a box of tissues and a bowl of peppermint candies. He picked up a candy, turned it once in his fingers, and put it back with a faint smile. Across from him, a poster read, "Tell the truth. Speak slowly. Take your time." He read the lines and nodded. Simple things said well. Elena came in with a copy of the new draft notice for the lobby. "May I show you this?" she asked. "I know you're not here to check our work. But I want to make sure the language feels right to someone who wears a uniform." Jamal read the sheet. The words were clean and clear. "This is good," he said. "It focuses on respect rather than on exceptions." "That was our aim," Elena said. She smiled, small but real. "Thank you." While they spoke, Judge Patel took a short walk to 3A. She met Judge Kinsey in chambers. Their voices were private, but it is not hard to imagine their plain shape. "Harold," she said, "we must correct this." "My intention was neutrality," he answered. "And my intention is trust," she said. "Neutrality does not mean erasing earned honor. You know that our guidance leans the other way." He looked at the wall for a long moment. You have vacated the order. Yes. And I will report the incident for review. He nodded once, not with agreement, but with the acceptance that a larger process had begun. Sometimes the first step toward change is only to stand still and let a different step be heard. Downstairs, in the lobby, the new notice went up. It was simple: this courthouse welcomes all who come with respect. Lawful uniforms and earned decorations may be worn according to regulation. Our goal is fairness with dignity for every person. People read it as they passed. A bus driver coming to contest a ticket read it and nodded. A grandmother who had seen too many hard days read it and smiled. By early afternoon, courtroom 3B was quietly full. Word had traveled, but it had traveled in a good way. There were no signs, no shouting, only people sitting with hands folded, waiting to see how a community sets itself right. Mrs. Avery squeezed Jamal's hand. "Thank you," she whispered. Her nephew sat straight, his papers now still. "Whatever happens with my case," he said softly, "thank you for standing the way you do." Jamal nodded. "We'll speak the truth when called. That's all." The clerk called the case. They stood and moved to the front. Judge Patel looked over the file, listened to the nephew, read the proof of payment, asked clear questions, and then gave a fair answer. A small fine for the late fee. No extra penalty. A gentle reminder to read all mail from the city. The nephew thanked her. Mrs. Avery dabbed at her eyes. The room felt like a schoolroom after a good lesson, quiet, warm, sure. "Mr. Carter," Judge Patel said at the end, "thank you for your service and for your calm today. Your conduct helped this court do better." Jamal spoke into the microphone. "Your Honor, I carried a standard once that did not belong to me alone. Today you carried one for the court. Thank you." He stepped back. For a moment, it seemed the metal on his chest shone a little brighter, not because of the room's lights, but because of the way the people in the room looked at it with understanding, not argument. Outside, the late sun slid over the stone steps. Theo stood on the landing, phone put away, hands in his pockets. He had learned something about posts and patience, a lesson he would keep. Elena walked beside him, holding a stack of notices to place on each floor. "We'll get a proper printed version by tomorrow," she said. "Today was already better," he replied. Mr. Price held the door for a family leaving with a stroller. They said thank you. He said you're welcome. Small words, well used. Jamal paused at the top of the steps and looked back at the building. He did not feel like a hero. He did not feel wronged. He felt the same way he felt at the tomb after a long watch, tired in a good way, cleaned out by duty, grateful for stillness. He touched the metal once, not to show it, but to remember the names behind it. Then he walked down into the soft noise of the city buses sighing, shoes on pavement, a laugh somewhere close, a whistle far away. The turning point of the day was not loud. It was a sentence written with care, a policy posted with respect, a judge who listened, and a veteran who stood still. It was also 100 small choices made by people whose names would never be on a plaque, an intern who shared gently, a clerk who looked up the right page, a bailiff who kept his voice soft, a security officer who reminded everyone to be kind. Together, those choices shifted the weight of the day from hard to right. As evening came, the courthouse windows caught the last light. Inside, a single sheet of paper on a corkboard carried a clear promise: fairness with dignity. And in a quiet apartment a few blocks away, a uniform jacket was hung back in a closet, straight and clean, ready for the next day when truth might need to be worn again. The day after the hearing in courtroom 3B, the courthouse lobby felt different. People moved a little slower, like they were reading the air as well as the signs. The new notice about uniforms and earned decorations was printed on clean white paper and placed in a glass frame. A grandmother paused with her grandson to read it out loud. The boy asked what decorations meant. She pointed to a small photo on the notice and said, It means something you earned by serving others. The boy nodded like he was putting a new word on a shelf in his mind. In a small office one floor up, Elena finished her memo. It was simple and careful. She listed what happened, in order, with exact times. She used the words people said, not guesses. She attached the page from the guidance book. She added a short note about how the court had corrected itself, vacated the order, and posted a new policy. She did not add feelings. The facts could stand on their own. Mr. Price signed his own statement. He wrote about how he spoke to Jamal with respect, and how Jamal spoke the same way back. He wrote, "My duty is to keep order, and I believe I did that while also honoring a person's dignity." He kept his handwriting neat, each letter made with care. Theo, the intern, sat at a small spare desk with a cup of lemon tea. He felt strange about how fast his short clip had traveled. There were now longer stories online from local reporters, but they were measured. They used no loud music, no big claims. They said only that a misunderstanding happened, that a higher judge fixed it, and that a review was coming. It was the kind of news that helps a city grow up a little more. By noon, the Judicial Conduct Commission sent a notice to the courthouse. It was a thin envelope with a big weight. Inside, the letter said the commission would open a review of the incident in 3A. It asked for Elena's memo, the clerk's log, the policy page, and any statements from people involved. It also said that Judge Harold Kinsey would be invited to respond and could bring counsel. There would be a public hearing within 2 weeks. Judge Patel took a copy of the letter to her chambers and read it twice. Then she sent a calm note to all staff, "Please cooperate promptly and respectfully with the commission. Our goal is clarity and trust." The words were plain. They did not point fingers. They pointed forward. Jamal learned about the review from a short, polite call. A commission staff member asked if he wished to give a statement. He said yes. He did not ask for a lawyer. He was not angry. He would simply tell what happened and what he said. After the call, he sat at his kitchen table with a pen and a sheet of lined paper. He wrote slowly, crossing out only 2 words. He wrote that he had been asked to remove an earned medal, that he had said "I cannot" with respect, that he had been detained for a short time and then released when the supervising judge corrected the matter. He wrote one more sentence at the end, "I hope the court and the public will remember that fairness and respect can stand together." He folded the paper and placed it in an envelope. He did not take a photo of it. He did not share it online. He simply walked to the post office and mailed it. Meanwhile, other stories began to surface, not shouted, only noted. A public defender shared that Judge Kinsey sometimes set unusual deadlines that were hard for people to meet, like ordering a single parent to appear the next day with no time to arrange child care. A legal aid clinic remembered a case where he refused to let a translator sit close enough to a nervous speaker, even when the person struggled with English. None of these stories were about big scandals. They were about small rules used in a hard way. Together, they formed a picture, a judge who valued order, but sometimes forgot why order exists. The commission scheduled the hearing for a Friday afternoon. The notice said it would be in a large room at the State Building, with seats for the public. No posters, no chants, no disorder. The hearing would be recorded. People who wished to speak would sign in. The commission would ask questions. The judge would have a chance to explain. That Friday came with soft rain. The building's steps were wet and clean. A few people stood under umbrellas. The security staff greeted each person with the same calm tone. "Good afternoon. Phones on silent, please." Inside, the hearing room had rows of chairs, a long table for the commission members, and a microphone on a stand. A court reporter sat at a small machine, fingers ready. A flag stood in the corner. The room felt like a school assembly and a town meeting at once. Jamal slipped into a seat near the middle. He wore a simple suit today. The medal stayed at home, in its velvet box, as it usually did. He had no need to make a point. He was here to listen and to speak if asked. Elena sat 3 rows ahead with a small folder. Mr. Price came on his own time, in a plain jacket, no badge, because he did not want to look like he was there to control anyone. Theo arrived and took a seat near the aisle. He put his phone away and held a pen, as if that helped him sit still. When the commissioners entered, everyone stood. They took their seats and the chair, a calm woman with silver hair, tapped the microphone. This is a public hearing of the Judicial Conduct Commission regarding courtroom decorum and the treatment of a witness on the morning of the 14th. Our aim today is to understand what happened, why it happened, and how to protect fairness and dignity in the future. She called the first witness, Elena. Elena walked to the microphone and took the oath. Her voice was steady. She described the morning in 3A, the judge's order, her attempt to show the guidance, the recess, the hallway, and the steps that followed. She spoke about the memo and the new policy. She did not add extra color. She did not guess at the judge's thoughts. When the chair asked if she had anything else to add, Elena said, "Only this, we must be careful how our rules look to the public. Respect is part of order." Mr. Price went next. He took the oath and told the simple truth, that he spoke to Jamal gently, that Jamal answered gently, that he placed the cuffs with care, that he removed them when ordered. "My goal was to keep dignity on both sides," he said. A commissioner asked if he had seen anyone threaten the court's authority. "No," Mr. Price answered. "I saw a veteran stand quietly. I saw a room hold its breath. They called Jamal. He walked to the microphone, placed a hand on the Bible because that was the practice here, and swore to tell the truth. He kept his eyes on the chair, not on the crowd. He told the story in a few plain lines. He ended as he had ended his letter, "I hope we remember that fairness and respect can stand together." The chair asked, "Did you intend to sway the jury with your medal?" "No, ma'am," Jamal said. "I intended to speak the truth about a young man I know. The medal is not a tool. It is part of my uniform and my life. I would have accepted waiting outside if that had helped." "Thank you," the chair said. "Your answer is clear." Then they called Judge Kinsey. He entered with a lawyer who carried a leather folder. The judge looked tired but straight-backed. He took the oath and began to explain. "My duty is neutrality. A courtroom cannot signal to a jury that one person stands above the rest. It seemed to me that the medal might sway feelings, and feelings should not decide facts." One commissioner leaned forward. "Your Honor," she asked, "did you consider that the medal is not a decorative sign but an earned part of a lawful uniform?" "I considered it," he answered. "But I felt my rule was proper." Another commissioner pointed to the guidance page. "This paragraph suggests the opposite, that respect for uniforms is part of dignity in the court." "I understand that now," the judge said. His voice was quiet, not angry. "I did not intend disrespect." The chair asked, "Would you make the same decision again?" He paused. It was a long pause, but not empty. It was the sound of a person facing himself. "I would ask for a recess sooner," he said. "I would seek guidance. I cannot say I would order the same thing. I see now how it appeared." "Do you wish to apologize?" the chair asked. The judge took another breath. "I regret the distress," he said. "My aim was order. Some people in the room wanted a different word. They wanted 'I am sorry.' But the judge did not say those exact words. He only said what he could say, and he said it carefully." The commission asked about past practices, tight deadlines, stern rules, times when people felt small in his courtroom. The judge said he held everyone to the same standard. He did not deny being strict. He did not call anyone a liar. He stood on his rules like a man on a narrow porch. After the questions, the chair closed the public comment. "Thank you," she said. "We will recess to deliberate." The room exhaled. People stood and stretched quietly. Jamal sat down again and looked at his hands. He felt neither victory nor defeat. He felt the weight of a common task, to keep a city both fair and kind. The commissioners returned in 35 minutes. The chair spoke into the microphone, voice steady as a ruler on paper. The commission finds that the order to remove an earned military decoration was inconsistent with guidance and with the dignity owed to all court visitors. The contempt order should not have been issued. We commend the supervising judge and staff for correcting the matter promptly and posting a clear policy. She went on, and every word was measured. We also find a pattern of overly rigid enforcement of non-essential rules in Judge Kinsey's courtroom. While order is vital, order must serve justice, not overshadow it. Accordingly, we issue a public censure. We further recommend that the appointing authority consider removal or request the judge's resignation. We recommend immediate mentoring and training for all courtrooms on dignity, accessibility, and plain language policy. The room stayed quiet, but the quiet had a shape, like a bell you can feel but not hear. Elena closed her eyes for a second, then opened them. Mr. Price folded his hands. Theo wrote 3 words on his notepad: fair, clear, kind. Judge Kinsey did not speak. He stood, nodded to the commission, and walked out with his lawyer. Jamal watched him go. He did not feel glad to see a man in trouble. He felt the way he used to feel at the end of a long guard, heavy but steady, aware that the work was not about him. Outside, the rain had stopped. The steps shone. People moved down them slowly, not wanting to slip. Groups formed and broke apart with quiet talk. A young reporter asked Jamal for a quote. He said only, "Respect helps us stand together." Then he smiled and added, "Please write that exactly." She promised she would. Elena walked beside Mr. Price under a gray sky that was starting to lighten. "This was hard," she said. "Yes," he answered. "But sometimes hard is how we get to right." Back at the courthouse, the framed policy caught the glow from the cloudy afternoon. A new notice was added beside it: the court will host a public information session next week on courtroom rights and responsibilities. Simple words, simple plan. At home, Jamal placed his suit jacket on a hanger and opened the velvet box. He looked at the medal, not as a prize, not as a shield, but as a promise. He whispered the names he always whispered when the day had been long. Then he closed the box with a soft click and set it back in the drawer. He made tea. He stood by the window and watched the clouds lift. The day had moved through crisis to response. The next day would bring an outcome. But tonight, the city felt like a room where people had spoken plainly and listened carefully. That kind of room is rare. It is also the kind that can hold a community steady when the wind picks up. Jamal turned off the kitchen light and let the soft street glow fall across the floor. He went to bed early. Morning would come, and with it the last steps of the story, the kind of steps that close one door and open another. Morning came clear and bright, as if the sky itself wanted a clean start. Jamal woke early without an alarm. He made his bed the same careful way as always, corners tucked and smooth. He brewed tea instead of coffee and stood by the window while it steeped. On the street below, a father tied his daughter's shoelace. A bus sighed at the corner. Somewhere, a dog shook its collar and made a small music of metal. The city looked ordinary again, and that felt good. On the kitchen table lay yesterday's paper with a short article about the commission's decision. The headline was plain: Commission issues public censure, training and policy changes to follow. There were no loud words, no sharp labels. The story praised the quick correction by the supervising judge and the staff. It also said the commission had recommended removal or resignation for Judge Harold Kinsey. It was not a happy thing to read, but it was part of the truth. Jamal folded the paper and put it in the recycling. He did not plan to keep clippings. He had his own way of remembering. He opened the dresser drawer and looked at the velvet box for a moment, then closed it again. Today, he chose a simple shirt and a light jacket. He planned to walk to the courthouse, not for any case, but for the public information session the court had promised, a session about rights and responsibilities, dignity and order. It would be held in the lobby so people would not feel shut out by heavy doors. At the courthouse, the glass-framed notice still stood near the entrance. Next to it was a new sign on an easel that read, "Community session at 10 o'clock, understanding courtroom respect." Folded chairs had been set up in rows. A small table held water cups and a stack of handouts. The handouts were simple. They explained how to dress for court, how to speak when called, and how the court would honor service uniforms and earn decorations worn according to regulations. The last page listed free legal help and translation services. Elena arranged the handouts into straight stacks. She wore a navy blazer and a soft smile that calmed people as they walked in. Mr. Price stood nearby, not stiff, not casual, just ready. Theo placed a small sign that said, "Questions welcome," and checked a portable microphone to make sure it worked. By 10, the lobby was half full. A teacher brought a small group of students with notebooks. A bus driver came in uniform. A florist in a green apron stood next to a carpenter with a pencil behind his ear. An older couple sat side by side, hands linked. They looked like people who had learned to listen to each other over many years. Judge Patel stepped forward at the top of the hour. She wore her plain black robe, the way a judge should when speaking for the court. She did not stand on the stairs. She stood on the floor with everyone else. "Good morning," she said. "Thank you for coming. The courthouse is not just a building. It is a public room where we practice fairness. That practice has rules, and those rules must be shaped by respect. We want to explain both today. We also want to hear your questions." She began with simple points. Phones on silent. Take off hats unless they are part of your uniform or your faith. Speak only when called, but write down questions and we will answer them. If you need a translator, ask for one. If you are nervous, breathe. We are people, too. She paused and looked around the lobby, taking in the faces. You may have heard about the incident last week. We corrected it, and this new policy is part of that correction. The goal is not to win a debate. The goal is to keep trust. We respect service uniforms and earn decorations worn correctly. We also respect the right of every person here to be treated with dignity. Hands went up. The florist asked, "What if a person's clothes are neat but not formal? Will they be turned away?" "No," Judge Patel said. "Neat is enough. We ask for respect, not expense. If someone forgets a rule, we will remind, not shame." A student asked, "Why do judges wear robes?" "To make the person less important than the role," she answered. "The robe says, the law is bigger than me. That helps all of us focus on the job, not the judge's style." A young veteran raised a hand. "If I wear my uniform to support someone, is that allowed?" "Yes," she said. "If it is lawful and worn correctly, yes. We will ask everyone to behave with respect, including you. But your uniform is not a poster. It is part of who you are." Jamal listened and felt something settle inside him, like a stone resting at the bottom of a clear pond. He did not need to speak. The community spoke for itself. Halfway through, the door opened and a man in a gray suit entered quietly. People turned because they recognized him. It was Judge Kinsey. His face looked thinner. He walked to a spot near the back and stood, hands folded. He did not ask for the microphone. He did not interrupt. He listened while other people talked. When the last questions were done, Judge Patel looked in his direction and gave a small nod. "Would you like to say something?" she asked. He stepped forward a little, but not all the way. His voice was not loud. I failed to seek guidance when I should have, he said. I believed I was protecting neutrality. Instead, I harmed trust. I regret that. His eyes touched the crowd but did not rest on anyone for long. I have submitted my resignation. I will make room for someone who can serve better than I did. There was no applause. There were no boos. The lobby held a simple, heavy quiet, the kind of quiet that comes when a person tells a hard truth and accepts its cost. Then someone near the front said, "Thank you for being here," and the quiet changed shape. It became a space people could walk through. After the session, people formed small circles. A student asked Jamal for a photo for her civics project. He said yes as long as they included the sign about respect for all. Mr. Price showed a grandmother where the elevator buttons were for the floor she needed. Elena handed out extra copies of the handout to the teacher. Theo wrote 3 lines on a poster board for next time: speak slowly. Ask questions. We will help. Outside, a light wind moved the trees. Jamal stepped onto the stone steps and felt the sun on his face. He had come to see if the courthouse meant what it said. He believed it did. He started down the steps, then heard a careful voice behind him. "Mr. Carter." It was Judge Kinsey. Jamal turned. "Yes, Your Honor," he said, giving the title because it still belonged to the day he had met him on the bench. "I wanted to say this to you in person," the judge said. "I am sorry." He said the whole sentence cleanly, not tucked inside other words. "I made a hard thing harder." "You stood steady." "I did not." "I am sorry." Jamal held the judge's gaze for a moment. "Thank you," he said. "I accept your words. I hope you find your next good work. Every person has a way to serve." "I will try," the judge said. He gave a small nod and walked away, shoulders set but not stiff. That afternoon, the courthouse hosted a short ceremony in the lobby. Not a celebration, not a show, just a marker. A simple display case had been moved near the framed policy. Inside it were 3 things: a small copy of the Constitution, a folded flag donated by a local veterans chapter, and a stack of Know Your Rights cards in 3 languages. A brass plate at the bottom read, "Fairness with Dignity." A group of middle school students came with sketchbooks. They had drawn the courthouse from different angles. One drawing showed the front doors open like a book. Another showed the lobby filled with chairs and people listening. The teacher asked if anyone wanted to explain their art. A quiet boy with glasses said, "I drew the water cups. It means people plan for each other." People smiled at that. Planning for each other, yes, that was part of respect. In the days that followed, the court held short trainings for all staff. Some were about rules and signs. Some were about tone. A woman from a community theater gave a small class on voice, how to make it firm without being hard, how to slow down when someone is nervous, how to put warmth into a sentence without losing clarity. A translator led a session on how to work with people who speak in different rhythms. Mr. Price spoke about how a hand can guide without pushing. Elena showed newer clerks where the real answers live, in clear notes, checked twice. Theo helped start a monthly civics hour on Saturday mornings. People could tour an empty courtroom, see where the clerk sits, where the bailiff stands, where a witness goes. Kids could bang a wooden block that was not a gavel but felt like one. They laughed, then stood a little taller when told that the same room gets very serious on weekdays. Jamal did not attend every event. He had a life, neighbors to help, a small garden on his windowsill, a quiet book he was reading about ships and tides. But once a month, he came to speak for 5 minutes to the civics hour group. He kept his words simple. Tell the truth. Speak slowly. Take your time. Respect the room. The room will respect you. He did not mention his medal unless a child asked. When asked, he explained it very plainly, "This is something I received for what happened long ago. It belongs to me and also to my friends who are not here. I wear it when I need to carry their names with me." One Saturday, the young intern, now a full-time staff aide, asked if Jamal would look at the final version of a small booklet the court had made. It was called Your Day in Court, a friendly guide. The booklet had pictures of the lobby, a map of bathrooms and water fountains, a page about how to ask for a translator, and a whole section titled Dignity, Yours and Ours. Jamal turned the pages slowly. He smiled at the last line, "If you see something that feels wrong, say something. We listen." He said, "This is good. It will help people feel less alone." News eventually moved on. Other stories filled the city's days: park openings, school plays, bus route changes, a new bakery with a line out the door at 7 a.m. But something quiet stayed. People spoke a little more gently in the courthouse. They read signs more carefully. When a veteran walked in wearing a uniform, eyes softened in a way that was not hero worship, just human understanding. When someone broke a small rule, staff corrected them without making them feel small. The lobby felt like a school hallway where everyone knew the same song. As for Judge Kinsey, he did not vanish. He volunteered at a legal clinic 2 mornings a week, sitting at a folding table with a pot of coffee and answering simple questions about forms. He spoke less than before and listened more. He learned the names of the translators and the cleaning staff. He learned to say "I am sorry" without his voice catching on the first word. It was not the end of his story. It was the middle of a new one. On a late afternoon in early fall, Jamal walked by the courthouse after visiting Mrs. Avery, who had baked cornbread and sent him home with 2 warm pieces wrapped in a clean towel. He stopped in the lobby to read the brass plate again, "Fairness with Dignity." Beside it, a small corkboard held thank you notes from school children. One note said, in shaky pencil letters, "Thank you for being nice when my mom was scared." Another said, "I want to be a bailiff because Mr. Price was calm." A third said, "Courthouse smells like lemon but feels like people." He chuckled softly at that. Lemon and people. Not a bad mix. He stepped back outside. The sun sat low and turned the windows into long gold rectangles. He stood still for a breath and touched his chest where the medal would rest if he were wearing it. He spoke the names he always spoke, not loudly, just enough for his heart to hear. Then he started home. What happened that week had ended one thing and begun another. A judge's career closed, a court's promise opened wider. A policy changed on paper, a practice changed in people. A city learned that rules and respect do not fight if both remember their purpose. Jamal did not call it victory. He called it balance. At his apartment, he placed the cornbread on a plate and poured milk. He set 1 piece aside for the boy in the soccer jersey downstairs. He wrote a small note, "For after practice. Keep going." Then he sat by the window and watched day slide into evening. The light softened. The sounds thinned. The air cooled. He thought about the sentence he had said more than once, "Fairness and respect can stand together." It was not a slogan. It was a way to hold a room, a day, a life. It was also a way to carry a medal quietly, honestly, for the sake of others as much as for himself. When the first star showed in the fading blue, he turned off the lamp and let the window keep the last light. The city breathed. He breathed with it. Somewhere far away, a guard stepped onto a dark mat and began a silent watch. Somewhere close, a courthouse door swung slowly and closed softly with a seal that felt like trust.